Have you seen any of these of the Robo Olympics?
I've seen a little bit of it, yeah, and it seems like it's always coming out of China. Let's take a look.
Uh-huh. It's really fucking funny. They're ping-ponging, but then there's other ones where they are like sprinting and they're really good. It's just that don't really know yet when to stop.
You see that one? It's like pelvis just explodes. I do find it interesting that all of this is happening in China, whereas in the US, like if someone were to put this on, they would get a lot of backlash, right? Like Americans do not want to see that. They don't want to see these robots that have these capabilities. They're like shied away from that. Whereas in China, they're like, yeah, we're going to put on our own Olympics. It just did that little Ronaldo celebration, that one.
More entertaining to watch robots than this, what was the enhanced games. Turns out that it's more entertaining to watch robots break Usain Bolt's world record than to watch sprinters not even come close. So yeah, it is surprising that it's happening in China. I love it. And apparently they made so much progress that I think 3 months ago, the fastest robot, or a year ago, the fastest robot ran 21 seconds on 100 meters. And now they literally broke Usain Bolt's world record.
Wow. It looks like almost both of them would have broken it, right?
Yeah,
they were all
I
like,
think
they were
both
both neck
of them
and neck.
actually did.
I don't know if you saw after they finished, but like they just have a wall and they just run into the wall and so they bring out the stretcher. It just like self-destructs basically.
The first
blows
aid.
up.
First robot aid.
The first aid.
It's insane how they improved over the last months and year, and I'm very curious where this is going. Or if other countries will start participating, or if this is just going to be a China thing. Do you think there's any other countries that actually participate, or is this all just China teams?
Who's to say? But I think that the backlash is going to only get bigger and bigger, where people are going to be anti-AI, anti-robots, all of this stuff. Until we actually see robots that are, or AI that's curing cancer and helping elderly folks with their day-to-day lives, right? That's when I think people will start having a better sentiment when it comes to artificial intelligence and robots. Travis Kalanick was saying this too. Like, we really haven't had that like iPhone moment when it comes to robotics and hardware. It's still just like, you know, all of these like kind of parlor tricks. Yeah. And I know he's leaning very much into the kind of specific robotics that can do one task. I definitely think that that will be accomplished before these all-purpose robotics, like kind of how Tesla is doing with the Optimus and all.
I think this is also like a great move from China to like as a general sentiment around AI. I find that they're doing a much better job in terms of like AI public relations, where you have the top in the US, it's like, oh, AI is coming for your job and AI is bad and like doom stinking, and everyone has this idea of the iRobot movie and all of these things, where then you have China, they're doing these cute things with robots. They're doing Robot Olympics, and they're having a launch video where someone can go to the lake and talk to his agent. You know, have you seen that one recently? I think it was Quen, who had like a completely different launch video than any others. And I find like that the Chinese are just doing a better job at like positioning AI and robotics as a less scary thing than the West does. And in that sense, I'm quite happy to see like a refreshing vision being pushed into the world with these Olympics, which is fun to watch. And it's cool, and it shows the progress in a not scary way, where like if we would see like these robots in a household like doing one task but then running against a mirror and destroying the house, that's like, okay, yeah, these robots are still far from actually being able to do something. But looking here, these robots are very optimized for specific things, like in the physical world. Running fast, jumping high, doing all that stuff. And then maybe this also goes into the next topic that we have lined up. It's now combining the robots with their physical appearance, but then also teaching them specific skills. And there was Skilled AI. They just introduced their new foundation model, which allows you to teach a robot to do tasks by just showing the task. They're basically bridging the gap between robotics and AI skill training. And this kind of reminds me of how you could do a screen record and turn that screen record into a Claude skill. But then now it's becoming reality, where like it's not a screen record anymore, it's you recording yourself with maybe some sensor or monitors, and then a robot in the real world can actually turn that into a skill and reproduce that skill over and over and over again. Yeah, so that's exciting to see how this overlap is now almost fully possible. What are you thinking, Ben, about this? You've been a bit more or deeper into the hardware direction too.
Yeah, I'm trying to go into that direction. I think there's a lot of promise there. I don't think that we're there yet for these models, and I'll tell you why. Just anecdotally, like I'm trying to build up my social media account by using Remotion and hyperframes and the video editing process. Like, and we had Matt on the podcast a few months ago. He kind of had a similar thought, and maybe when the new Mythos version comes out, it'll be that much better. I know that people break down video and they say that video is just a lot of frames, right, of images that you kind of stack on top of each other, and then you can come up with a video from that. I don't know if it requires more context window, like more than 1 million tokens, which is kind of what a lot of these models have now. But I'm not seeing video editing, even with really good prompts, really good skills, working with those skills over time. I'm not seeing that flexibility from video to video. So example for you, I'll record a video of like, these are the top 5 skills that you should install in your Claude instance. And I'll record that one. I'll give it instructions. I'll say, we want this graphic at this second. We want this graphic at that one. And then I'll give it another video and I'll be like, let's do a similar thing here. And it just is not able to get the words right, or the timing isn't right. And it just keeps happening. And at this point, it almost feels like a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, like shame on me, because should I just be using CapCut instead to be editing the videos instead? I'm just not seeing the output that I want to. And it's honestly, it's very frustrating. And I'm using even Fable 5 now. So I'm like throwing the kitchen sink at it. I'm trying to use the best model out there, right? And I'm not there yet. So when it comes to these ones now, where you're operating a 3-dimensional space and you're trying to flip a pancake, yeah, they could show a video of that happening once, but also how do you get the pancake batter set up, right? Like how are you able to figure out all the things that go before flipping the pancake and then after flipping the pancake? I really do have my doubts. I think, if anyone in the US is going to be able to do it, I'm bullish on Tesla and Optimus being able to figure it out, because they have so much data in terms of real world AI with the full self-driving. But we're probably 3 to 5 years away from meaningful robots that are going to be able to do that, these types of household tasks. Yeah, that's kind of my thought.
Yeah, we got a skeptic here.
I'm skeptical. Yeah.
Well, I think your video editing reference is quite spot on as well. Where like and I actually had a coffee with Matt this morning. We were discussing this. Like he's been trying to fine tune his system and all of that. And yeah, it all comes down to indeed like one video it does what you ask it, and then the next one it doesn't. And sometimes I think it's also because you try to not have too many processes in one process. But if you really cut it down to the layers that go into it, where you have your script analysis and then another bot will then analyze that and divide it into sections, and then you have another specifically built for the creative direction, for example, which then like says, okay, here is a framework that's being used, and on a framework we do B-roll of the framework. And then you have another one but like you cannot ask one bot to do all of these steps. I think it's like having very specific agents for each layer who then are plugged into each other. I guess that's how it can be done, but it's like, is it really worth it to go so deep and to go optimize all of that while you can actually just pay for CapCut, which is quite cheap, and you can now plug in your Claude into CapCut and do it that way? I guess that's why no one really nailed it yet, because it's also, if you have all these layers, then suddenly the process becomes just as expensive as if you use a Descript or a CapCut.
Yeah. But when you plug into CapCut, you're still dragging stuff around, right? Like, is Claude even able to kind of add things, find sound effects, all that stuff, and put it into CapCut?
I think it's been drastically improved. I think Matt had a recent video on YouTube which is doing pretty well, where he connected Claude to CapCut and then used Claude to edit in CapCut. So I do think CapCut is making progress on that front, and like you're possible to do way more now than it was 5 months ago. But yeah, it's just I have a vision where I have an idea, and then I can just put it to an agent and it creates it kind of all, and it tells me what videos to make, and then give it back and it makes it all. It's just too much. Like, it's just not there yet. And we've been saying, yeah, in a few months we might, but feels like the progress is slower than we expected on that.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I think that the video editing side, a year from now I felt pretty confident. Like 1 year, you can give it a 4-minute unedited raw video and say, make graphics, check it again. It almost goes through layers of checking and then it'll revert back if it doesn't. I think that the tool calling, I've been really heavily into just kind of building some stuff this week, especially, and I'm just analyzing how much tool calling goes on. And I think that that's really just where a lot of the improvements came from in the last year, is having good documentation around when to use which tool. That didn't exist a year ago. And maybe what we need is better tool calling within this video editing landscape, which is a totally different ecosystem than like documentations of APIs and stuff, right? It's like, it's a 3-dimensional video kind of horizon. So yeah, but the robots, that's going to be 3 to 5 years. That's my guess.
Yeah, and video editing will be solved before the robots take over, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Next up, we have some big news of the day, I think. News from today as well, where NVIDIA agrees to buy Hugging Face for $12.9 billion.
Wow.
Which has just been flooding the timelines. But also today was NVIDIA earnings day, and I think they had earnings of like, what was it, 90 billion this quarter. So the 12.5 sounds like a small price to pay for NVIDIA for such a big platform, which is kind of one of the foundations of open source AI, right? I'm gonna not share too much of my thoughts on this yet. I want to hear yours first, Ben. What's your thoughts on this move from NVIDIA buying Hugging Face?
Well, can't help but to also think about Stripe buying OpenRouter for a fairly similar valuation, like around $8 billion, right? But, when I look at that analogy, OpenRouter was the payment gateway of being able to like access AI inference on the internet. And Stripe, of course, wanted to get into that lane. NVIDIA is going hard into open source. And the reason why is they almost don't want a cart in this horse, right? They want AI to grow as in totality, and that can be open source, closed source. Hugging Face is almost, I think of it as the closest thing to GitHub for AI, where you can find anything AI related, whether it's a model, whether it's almost like kind of infringing on like skills, right? But like how to run your AI model as best as possible, go to Hugging Face. Terrible name, by the way. Anyway. And NVIDIA wants to, be that repo. It's almost like when Microsoft bought GitHub. Similar methodology here. I don't actually know how Hugging Face even makes money, because my understanding is just like, you can go there, download a model and all of that. But then again, I don't even know how GitHub makes money. I guess there are free tiers, but I've been on the free tier and I have many GitHub projects there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. What do you think, Rik? What are your thoughts on this acquisition?
Well, you kind of stole my line, because I was discussing this morning, and we also came to the conclusion that it kind of feels like Microsoft buying GitHub. And yeah, like it does feel like that. What I'm thinking about it is that NVIDIA, I think deliberately, or is choosing to not talk too much about open source models, because their clients, like if NVIDIA would like push their own models too much or talk too much about open source, then they're kind of blocking their own clients or their biggest clients. But I do think like now with Hugging Face coming into NVIDIA, and that like really becoming the open source hub, and NVIDIA having also all the compute, like they basically now have all the different layers to start providing all these open source models for a probably cheaper price than anywhere else on the market as well. So maybe this is NVIDIA's move to also start onboard end users instead of just companies. And it's the different direction where you saw OpenAI go from first consumer to now enterprise. NVIDIA has rode the whole enterprise wave, and they kind of hit to the peak TAM there of like, now we gotta offer banks loans against our chips to offer capital to other builders so that they can pay our GPUs. So now maybe this is their attempt to go after the consumer layer, and with all the open source and having the main hub of models. And we don't know which models NVIDIA has as well, because they have some models and they're basically free on OpenRouter and on their own hosting platform. So yeah, maybe this is their attempt to onboard the masses onto NVIDIA stuff.
Yeah.
Is it their hardware? Is their software?
Rik, why don't you take a guess what Hugging Face's ARR is? Annual revenue.
400 million.
150 million.
150 million.
They make no money.
No,
for
but they
for
are
a $13 billion company.
Yeah.
Or they just got bought for that. They make 150 million. That is 100 times. That's 100 times your revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to say 100 times. Is it not? I think it's 1,000 times even. 150 million.
But then think about it. What's the revenue per user? And same for like, while you're doing the search, do also the GitHub search, right? What was GitHub valued at? And what money were they making?
True. Okay, so correction. It is 100 times. So it's 100 times revenue, which is a lot. Cursor was bought by, SpaceX, I think, for like, people thought that was a lot, and that was less than 100 times ARR. So Microsoft acquired GitHub in 2018 for $7.5 billion. And their ARR, they bought it at a multiple of 25 to 30 times. They were doing around 200 million to 300 million at the time. They were bought for $7.5 billion. Basically, this is twice the multiple.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at those revenues, but I do think it's like, it is the place for open source AI models. Like, if you hear like people say, okay, there is speculation that Kimi K3 is coming out, and then you have literally people having their bots with alerts on Hugging Face, scraping Hugging Face every minute, just in case Kimi drops, so they can download it, because there is the fear that the government is gonna go and block it and tell Hugging Face take it offline. So like, it's the main hub for all open source, and I think that's why, like, it's valued way higher, an extreme multiple, because it's not really a money-making business, but it's a business that everyone in this industry or niche knows about. And then looking at the earnings of NVIDIA, or even the general market cap, what is 12 billion on a 4 trillion plus market cap? It's like, it's not even 1%, right? So in that sense, I think it's a very strategic move. It's a good move by NVIDIA, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I want to go back to Apple. Is that on the docket, the Apple acquisition? Because I thought there was a cool acquisition, Israeli company. So Rik, you're talking about how, like, what is it for NVIDIA, a $4 trillion company, to buy $13 billion Hugging Face? Apple just has such discipline because they hardly ever buy a company, right? I think Beats might have been their biggest acquisition. That was, what, 3 billion, something like that. Well, they just bought this company, this Israeli AI startup called QAI, for 1.5 billion. And what's interesting is this company is capable of understanding whispered speech and even words that are silently mouthed. So the technology, it's basically able to detect extremely subtle movements in the facial muscles to interpret words, even when they're silently mouthed. It can even maybe be able to estimate emotions, heart rate, breathing patterns, all of this stuff. So as I was reading this and trying to understand, like, okay, why do we think they're buying that? One of the things that's terrible with Siri is it can't really understand what you're saying that well, right? Like, you say something and whisper flow, Rik, you and I have talked about how that would be an amazing acquisition for Apple to bring onto Siri, but maybe this is a way for them to be able to even use the AirPods to be able to understand what you're saying and better people's words using facial movements and all of that. So kind of a fascinating acquisition.
Yeah.
If they're spending 1.5 billion, you got to think that they see something here because they
Yeah,
hardly
it's
ever buy
interesting
that.
because,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, if you then think about it, like all the content that has to be transcribed, or in most content, like if we talk about video editing, in most cases there's a face on there too, right? So it's
Oh.
like, and same with like a live selfie camera, like then that could be basically metadata. If your face gets analyzed together with the text, it enhances each other if you then want to later transcribe it. Talking about valuations, the next one is a good one. Anthropic expects to match or surpass the size of SpaceX stock, the record-setting IPO, where SpaceX IPO raised 86.2 billion. Anthropic could raise close to 100 billion, which is never seen before. Anthropic is expected to IPO by end of 2026. We've been talking about, is it over for Anthropic? Is this the end of the Anthropic era? And now they are coming out to the world and going to say, we are planning to raise an amount that the market has not seen before. What do you think, Ben? Are they going to succeed in this? Or they need another crazy release before that would be possible?
Sorry. They're gonna succeed. They already are. I know people, the pendulum keeps swinging every 3 to 4 months, and it's moved away from Anthropic, closer to OpenAI. Even SpaceX AI with Grok, that's making more noise these days. But the reality is that Anthropic built Mythos in February of this year. We're now 7 months out from there, and they absolutely have a Mythos 2.0 or some other model that they are just sitting on and waiting for that IPO, right? They're going to launch it. They're going to run some fear mongering campaign 4 to 6 weeks before they start IPOing. They go on their roadshow. They're going to show that this model was able to build a company that, had $10 million in ARR in shadow mode by autonomously running on its own, right? Like they are going to do something crazy like that, I think. And then simultaneously, they'll be kind of releasing this model to their partners to be able to detect more bugs on the internet and all of that stuff. So yeah, I'm still super bullish on Anthropic and Claude and all of that stuff. They figured out the whole inference issue with Colossus and that deal that Anthropic has
Well,
with
did they
SpaceX
really
AI.
though? Did they really?
Yeah, I guess so. Like, I mean, what do you think? Do you think that they didn't?
Well, I think they're paying a very high price and they're paying Elon's bills. Like
Yeah.
they're helping Elon more than they're helping themselves. Where then you see an OpenAI creating their own chips, where they're actually making way more progress, looking for at the future, like positioning themselves as we are sustainable compared to Anthropic. I don't know what on that front how well positioned they are if compute demand keeps rising, but they're dependent of a competitor which soon might even be at the same level. So I'm not sure if that's a real figured it out case, because what was the deal there as well? Like they have like a 90-day policy. Like Elon could say, well guys, in 90 days I need my compute myself. Right? But
Yeah.
right now he's not doing that because they're paying the bills for building his next data center. So Elon sees the capitalist viable route here, but I don't think it's the best for an Anthropic, and that's maybe why they need the 100 billion, right? But the same thing what you say with the Mythos, and Mythos has been out or created about 6 months ago. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're using Mythos to then create new models and new models in-house, and they're just not releasing them yet, and they're using those models to train new models. And this basically sounds like RL training, right? Reinforcement learning from models training models. And this was some other news this week where Sam Altman tweeted that they paused some frontier RL training to ensure that they can meet the appropriate alignment. But this is I wonder what's your thought here before I share mine on OpenAI stopping their model training.
Let's hear yours. I don't have too many.
Okay.
So
Well, I think this is what actually, like we said, with Mythos, Anthropic already is doing internally. But I also do think this is probably very much a marketing thing again. It's like we stopped doing this because they're getting too good at certain things. Like, why would you choose to go slower when open source labs are catching up, right? Open source ones, I'm pretty sure, like they will be continuing training and they are training. So I think this is more like, this is just, yeah, we paused some frontier reinforcement learning, some, right? We're not stopped creating new models. We didn't stop training new models. We stopped the reinforcement learning. But then it's mainly a marketing thing where every 2 weeks now they have some news about how good or strong or dangerous their models are. Like, we care deeply about AI safety, and 2 weeks ago it was we hacked Hugging Face, and 2 weeks before that it was something else, you know. So I think this is just a bi-weekly reminder how strong their models are to keep up the fear a bit, and yeah, to have this as a marketing, like they need to find new angles to market the strength of their models.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they're taking straight from the Anthropic playbook there, right? And I don't know. Also, how does this align with that other model that broke out
Yeah,
of
Astral,
OpenAI
right?
and with Hugging Face, right? How is that related to that model? It's such a black box, this whole pre-training process. We really don't understand it. I do wonder whether, you know, for however many podcasts that Dwarkesh has with any of these frontier labs, CEOs or engineers, you really just don't understand the process of it. Like, yeah, it's so locked down, and maybe it changes from strategy to strategy. I did hear somewhere this week this kind of concept that I haven't even thought of like maybe there is someone in the next 12, 18 months in their basement who's going to be able to build that next model that will surpass a Mythos level, right? Like, we think that you need all this compute and something, and I think you do to an extent for sure. But maybe there's a breakthrough strategy or process that will require way less compute and be able to get you way more benefits when it comes to that next frontier model type. It kind of got the gears turning for me a little bit there.
Like the basically sounds like BitTensor, like a decentralized training
Yeah,
run cluster.
sure. Sure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. And way less compute, like almost like a deep seek kind of concept where they claim that they were able to train, that was, I think, V3 for like $10 million, whereas these other
Mm-hmm.
labs were spending $1 billion on their
Mm-hmm.
versions.
Yeah,
So,
like if everyone pools their compute and their chips and then have it run decentralized, train it all, reinforcement learning, and people get incentivized by some network rewards. Yeah, might work. Might work. BitTensor, go do it. Talking about chips and OpenAI. Well, we already talked about the Jalapeño chip, but since announcing Jalapeño, our first custom inference chip, OpenAI has been testing it and the system around it. The results show a major advantage: more intelligence from every watt and faster responses, delivering both higher throughput and lower latency in one architecture without sacrificing efficiency. I've some people seen tweeting about this, that the performance comes close or is even better than NVIDIA chips. Now hardware is not really my thing, Ben. Have you followed this?
I've been following it, you know, just like all of us with these updates here and there and all. And really, the big thing with NVIDIA and their advantage comes down to the power efficiency and just how, if you are power constrained, which almost everyone is, NVIDIA GPUs right now, it's I think the Blackwell and the Rubin, right? Those are kind of the cutting edge GPUs. That is the best investment on a per watt basis, right? So Jalapeno coming out, um, they are OpenAI is simultaneously leaning into Cerebrus, which is like a $60 billion company right now. Faster inference. I think they just came out with fast mode, which I want to say is 12 times faster than the previous version. I don't know if you've played around with that. I think it's available in Codex. I haven't personally, but it's Cerebrus partnered with OpenAI and being able to like use Codex, and it's way faster. And yeah, this is another aspect of it. Now, I do think that, you know, there's the training side and then the inference side, and training is way harder for these GPUs to do. There's the CUDA layer, and NVIDIA still has their talons around that side. Inference is much more up in the air. Perhaps you could throw a bunch of Jalapeño chips and like, you know, you can run the inference and they're trying to optimize it for speed, it seems like. And it's perhaps maybe a little more efficient from a power perspective.
You mentioned inference, and this week one of the mysteries on the timeline was the new model that took over OpenRouter, which was called OX Alpha, and nobody knew what it was, but they served 100 trillion tokens a day for free via OpenRouter and other places, and apparently it turns out it's GLM 5.3 Flash, which just came out, that news, but they were running entirely on domestic Chinese AI chips. So I think, like, I'm not sure which chips, might be UAE, might be something else. But this basically is a proof that now Chinese chips can also serve a high demand of inference all across the world with zero hiccups and zero problems. And a very interesting strategy, or basically a marketing strategy from China to show the world what they're capable of now and how they actually caught up in terms of running inference of these open source models. And yeah, the OX Alpha was leading the charts on OpenRouter for these days, so people were very happy using it. What's your thoughts on this mystery?
There's been a debate in Silicon Valley and in DC about whether or not we should give NVIDIA GPUs to China or not. And many folks were of the notion that we should have them be using NVIDIA because we wanted them to still be kind of tapped into our network and have access to that. We could give them nerfed versions or nuked versions, I guess they call it, that are like slightly less powerful, but we would be able to control the supply. And then I think DC kind of went away from giving them access. China's response was, okay, we're going to build our Huawei versions and all these other kind of China GPUs. And, you know, if China was able to stand up a lot of GPUs in that time frame, this does go back to inference versus training, where I still don't know if China is nearly caught up to where NVIDIA is on the pre-training side, which is more important. I really do think that the pre-training side is more important, but from an inference side, 100 trillion tokens is a lot in a single day to be able to provide an inference. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, and then we see the performance of GLM 5.3 Flash, where GLM 5.2 was a big leap, and I've heard a lot of people that actually actively used it. It was also the model that was used when OpenAI's new model hacked into Hugging Face, and then both Codex and Fable were not allowing to go do some forensics or to figure it out. So then Hugging Face had to use an open source model, which was GLM 5.2, to find out what was going on. So it's like, it's the preferred coding model, and they now come out with their GLM 5.3 Flash, and I'm assuming 5.3 is coming pretty soon as well. But it's performing well, and yeah, people have been loving the previous one of this. So I think, yeah, this is again a step forward in open source AI, and this is the one that I would plug into my Hermes agent if I am actively using it. So yeah, China is making moves again. Well, we mentioned a lot of models. Let's see if we agree with this ranking from Theo, a rough tier list on where he would put every major model. S tier Fable. Ben, tell us, what's your 3 favorite models? and where do they rank?
Yeah, I don't feel like GPT 5.6 is as good as A tier, like Theo has been saying. I think, Rik, the first day or two, you and I were texting and we thought it was good. And then over time, I felt like it was less and less reliable. I would put Grok 4.6 A tier, honestly. Um, I'd probably put GPT 5.6 Soul, maybe B tier. Opus 5 is, you know, somewhere between A and B tier, but 100% Fable is the best. I just have not been able to find any model that consistently can think and perform coding tasks or even writing tasks like a human would, to the same level as Fable 5. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. Google, it's funny that it has its own tier below F. For a while, I think we were thinking that Google was catching up, and it's insane that Google is not even close to the competition, considering that they have their own TPU and they've thrown so much compute at this problem. Even Meta is now above it. What would you do, Rik? What does your tier look like?
Well, I'm not actively using Fable, but I bet it's the best. But then, well, my most used models are Grok 4.6, GPT 5.6 Luna, and GPT 5.6 Sol, with some Opus in there. I think Grok 4.6 scores high. GPT 5.6 Sol, like, I have GPT 5.6 Sol, Opus 5, and Grok 4.6 both together as, like, I think they're very even, just depending on which task to use. I would divide it to someone else, to another model, and then right below that I have GPT 5.6 Luna on max. So I guess Fable stays S tier, then A tier, these other three, and then GPT 5.6 Luna max and B. Yeah, that's basically it, and I don't really touch the other ones much, but I guess if I was gonna use Hermes and plug in different models, I would use DeepSeek V4 Flash as well for easy, quick, fast tasks, and I would use GLM 5.3, the new one, maybe for more coding focused as the open source solutions. But yeah, not too different from what's already listed here. We just move up Grok a little compared to Theo's opinion.
Yeah. I do you think that Composer, they're gonna keep coming out with Composer models? I mean, Cursor just came out with Grok Bot. I think
Yeah,
Composer is dead, right? I think that Grok is the new model that Cursor is going to be using.
yeah,
That's my
it
guess.
might. I think they're just gonna continue this auto mode, right? Which, like,
Yeah.
the cursor models. And then, like, if you max out your Grok usage, you can always fall back to auto. I think it's similar to Codex now. Codex also announced that they are bringing back the 5-hour limits in the Plus accounts. But there comes with a caveat as well, because this is the 5-hour limit. But if you max out your GPT Soul, for example, I think you can still fall back onto GPT Luna, which is the one that I've been using on max for a lot of tasks that I'm like, okay, this might be a longer task. I'm gonna max out my Soul too fast. Then I'm just using the Luna one, and it is good. So I think Cursor is probably gonna be similar to that, where you have the main model, Grok 4.6, but then you have the the Cursor Auto, which falls back on either a Composer or whatever other model is cheaper for them to run, I guess. But yeah, there's nothing more annoying than maxing out your 5-hour limit to then not being able to do anything. And I think this is like a good middle way, like having users still use a lower or not so smart model, but at least so you can stay busy. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of sorry. Um, yeah, I think that first of all, the 5-hour time limit, I don't know why it's 5 hours. Like both of them decided, maybe one lab decided, then the other one kind of joined in. But defaulting, kind of pulling you down to a smaller, less powerful model that's maybe 10 times cheaper. That is how these frontier labs need to be able to keep you in the ecosystem. Just cutting you off totally, completely is not the move. And I think Anthropic, if I were to say one product management thing that they need to figure out, is chat versus Claude Code is totally different. You should have your own session limit kind of amount that is devoted just to chat, because I can't tell you how frustrating it is when I finish my Claude Code limit for that 5 hour window, for that weekly window, or whatever it is. And then I can't even use Claude in general. And all of my memory is stuck within Claude. Now I need to go to ChatGPT that doesn't know that information about me. Now OpenAI is figuring out more information about my personal life, which is arguably even more important long term than Claude's, Claude in like the workforce, because you can like port over everything work wise much easier, I think. So big miss on Anthropic's side when it comes to that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you just described exactly the reason why I started using Cursor again. It's exactly for this reason.
Exactly.
So that I
Yeah.
don't max out my Claude and I can still use the app whenever like I kind of wanted to use. And the interfaces are all the same anyway. Codex looks the same as Cursor, and Cursor looks the same as Claude Code in the desktop app, and even Google Anti-Gravity looks the same, and Hermes agent looks the same. So it doesn't really matter. Like,
Yeah.
So yeah, they really fucked up there.
Yeah.
Well,
And there is we should talk about lock-in a little bit,
mhm.
because this concept of a lock-in process is, I think, very relevant to like whether or not Anthropic is going to be valuable a year from now, 2 years from now, and all of that. But I don't know, Rik, did you see this tweet? I'll just share this real quick. Toby, the CEO of Shopify, was saying, I'm thinking about banning Claude Code at Shopify until they change their mind and read agents.md and agent skills. Insisting on only reading Claude.md sometimes leads to split brain problems when different team members use different tools, just unnecessary. But the fact that Claude Code will only read certain files, and it's like at the system prompt level you can't override this to me shows that Anthropic is very nervous of not being able to be locked in. And they did release something else this week about memory. All the frontier labs are trying to figure out ways where they can like ensure that you stay with them, and rate limits. This is the antithesis of that, where people kind of start jumping. Like in the last month, I've seen more people jump from Cursor to Codex. Like everyone is going everywhere now. But I thought this was interesting that, Shopify was actually thinking of banning Claude until they reversed this decision.
Yeah. Well, everyone is going everywhere, and
Everyone's going everywhere.
We were complaining a bit that Grok Bot was only available for those that were paying $300, and then earlier this week they announced that it was also available in Cursor Plus, I think, for $60. But now yesterday, Grok Bot announced that all Grok Bot and Cursor Pro subscribers now have access to Grok Bot. Oh, all Super Grok. And they're also resetting weekly usage limits. So now, if you have a $20 Cursor plan, you can start playing around with Grok Bot, which is what I just started doing. Last night, I actually fell asleep setting up my Grok Bots, and I woke up halfway, middle of the night, with my laptop next to me. Yeah, it's. I mean, that's what they had to do, and I think it's an interesting rollout, like how they approached it. Like first roll it out to the highest paying tiers, test it a bit, and then roll it out slowly to everyone else. The only thing that I found was that limits are quite limited. Like you won't be able to do very, very much, or like I personally already stopped my Grokbot to run every 10 minutes or 15 minutes a research task, because I'm pretty sure within 2 days my whole limit would be finished. So in that sense, you need the high subscription to be able to do everything that people claim you can do with it. But it is an amazing experience. It's great to sign up, to use to create your bots. There's different directories where you can find different inspiration for all the team members that you need. So yeah, it feels like it's the normies agent. Like it's perfect for anyone who is non-technical to go and start playing around with agents.
Yeah. Rik, is there any model selection process? Like, would you be able to bring your own model over to Grokbot or no?
I think you might be. I haven't tried that yet, but I
Yeah.
do think you can. Yeah.
If you could do that, that would be really nice because that's my concern. I feel like with OpenClaw and then the Claude subscription kind of getting pulled from that, it was nice because I could have moved another model over, I guess. But at that time, Claude was the only one that really worked for these personal agents. I would be nervous about setting up on Grokbot only for then Cursor to increase the price, and then I'm locked into like the Cursor ecosystem.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. I'll check on it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I'll tell you. But it's been a good experience at least. And the fun part of it, or the nice part of it as well, is that it has its own computer. So like within the Grokbot app, you can see what it's doing on the computer, and it's not touching your computer.
Yeah.
And you can also take over its computer. So then, like, for example, I logged myself into Twitter, and then it can like do anything on Twitter. It also has a Twitter plugin, so it says 2 ways to reach Twitter. Just like these small things are an experience improver compared to using whatever Hermes on a VPS or like that was. So that's the big win, I think. Have you seen outbid.lol in the beginning of the week?
Yeah, you showed me this. Why don't you explain it to the guest, to the
Okay.
host?
Yeah, so outbid.lol is basically a leaderboard where brands or companies can bid against each other to be the number one on the leaderboard. And as you can see here, the top bid paid $17,000 to be on the number one spot. The second one paid $16,000. Number three, $14,000. And yeah, like it goes on and on and on. This went super viral. I think the launch tweet now has about 5 million views. The creator made about, let's see, $235,000 in revenue of just projects bidding to be the number one spot on this leaderboard. I also think there's been probably at least 30 copycats for different target niches and markets been popping up, but this feels like, yeah, just like kind of retard maxing vibe coding, like just build that thing and launch it. And everyone who's seen it probably thinks, oh, it should have been me who launched this thing because it's such an easy idea. But yeah, this has been dominating the timeline for the last week, and I'm kind of fascinated by it. Like, I'm taking some inspiration from that. I'm not creating a copycat, but I'm definitely taking some inspiration of the viral loop there. And as well as, like, what was interesting too is to see how someone who paid $13,000, like their reasoning, like they then came out and they said, I just paid $13K on outbid.lol. People are calling me crazy, but here is the numbers. And then coming out, okay, paying $13K, knowing that the lifetime value of a customer is $2K, and the $13K already got him 50 trials or 50 trials. So if he just convert 6 of these 50 trials, basically paid for itself. So like it was nice to follow the whole journey of this guy Jonathan that launched it, as well as all the brands that then are jumping on it, and their perspective on why, like, what's the value of actually being a viral project, right? Because also maybe a last thing, Outbid has been going viral, but then the projects that bid for the top spot also were in the viral category from time to time. It's like, this project just bid $17K to be number one on Outbid. Like, it really became a whole story building on each other. So yeah, cool to follow. Any thoughts there?
Did you ever hear about the $1 million page?
No, what's that?
Okay, I'll share my screen. But this is the $1 million page. We could look up which year it came. You've seen this back in the day. Everyone paid $1 per pixel. So you could theoretically just buy $1 and, get like just a single pixel, which wouldn't get you much. But some of these other ones like globat.com right? And I'm hovering over, yeah, you could see the little kind of tooltip that shows this free hosting. Every one of these things is a pixel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they
Mm-hmm.
bought however many pixels this is, maybe a few hundred, maybe even 1,000. And then they made an image out of it, and then it takes you to quillbat.com. And so this is still on the internet, call it 15, 20 years, even longer later. To me, this was the first version of this concept of outbid.lol. And every 6 months to a year, we see another version of this that, it's almost like a Ponzi scheme for the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw someone else coming out with the same, and I think here it is. They took literally this concept and they turned it into another 1 million pixels made by Replit. So they took exactly what you said, and then they built 1 million pixels on my phone via Replit, sell 220,000 pixels for it. So it's the
Yep.
same setup.
Literally the same thing.
But then in 2026.
Crazy.
That is crazy. Yeah. And then here I think was someone comparing the one that you Thibaut comparing the guy made 1 million plus using the Outbid playbook in 2005. Since yesterday I've seen dozen people cloning Outbid. Yeah. Very interesting how working models from back in the days can now easily be vibe coded and turned into another stream of income. Super cool.
Wow. And so he co-founded Calm. Is that the meditation app?
Who did?
Thibaut, I'm just looking at this tweet. It says, "Oh, and Alex went on to co-found Calm."
Yeah, I guess the $1 million homepage guy, I guess, co-founder of Calm. Yeah. Yep.
Not even the $1 million com. Yeah. $1 million homepage guy.
He's both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Cool. Well, yeah.
He made a
Now
lot more from Calm, right? I mean, Calm might even be that might be a $1 billion company. Calm has a valuation of $2 billion as of December 2020. So we went from $1 million homepage to $2 billion startup.
Yeah, numbers. Well,
Numbers.
the final numbers of not the final. This was I think 2 days after launch. He got 1 million visitors, $132,000 in revenue, and the highest bid was 14. Well, we just saw that it changed a lot, and now his revenue is way up. But yeah, interesting story. Now he's thinking about quitting because like his banks or something doesn't want to process payments anymore. And I was like, maybe it's a good time to sell, bro. Maybe it's a good time to sell this thing, or do like a final sprint of like whoever bids most. Like I'm gonna lock up the leaderboard forever at midnight. So start bidding, like squeeze the last bit out of it, and then just let it sink. Well, last thing on the docket is the new Mac Mini.
Say hello.
I'm not sure if you've seen this launch video.
It's a cool launch video, and I know they got a lot of backlash initially because people were saying this is AI slop and it looks like an AI generated video. Then they put out a making of behind the scenes version of it, and that video got like 90 million views, and it showed all the motion graphics of them going frame by frame and kind of making the video, and it's pretty incredible. So yeah, I thought that was really cool to see. Apple has done a really good job of being able to navigate this AI wave in kind of an anti-AI fashion to an extent, I would say. Like granted, I guess they have Siri, but beyond that, they really haven't dipped their toes into it as much as others. And yeah, it was kind of interesting to see that. Wow, yeah, look at this.
Yeah, it's really well done. It's cool to see that creative process behind it. The first time I saw it, I was also like, oh, this is AI video. Why are they doing this? But then this showed up. I'm like, wow. That's good that they have documented this process at least too, because it's a really cool process. Well, I don't have much to say about this new Mac Mini. It's probably going to be super good, and Alex Finn is going to promote it hard.
Yeah.
I would consider getting one of those, to be honest, once I start like having a one place that I might settle, or I have all these screens here now. So why
Yeah.
not plug a Mac Mini in? Yeah.
What would
Well,
you do with it though? I wonder what you would do. I still don't quite understand what I would do that I couldn't. Would I rather a Mac Mini or a Grok Bot is kind of the question, I guess, that I ask myself. I don't know. I don't see local LLM inference being faster and better than paying, let's say, $20 to $50 a month and getting that through someone else. You know what I mean?
good question. I think my next decision is more going to be like, do I want to upgrade my M1 laptop, or do I want to, like, what's my next device going to be?
Mm.
Is that going to be a new laptop, or is that going to be a Mac Mini? And like, or is that going to be one of the cheaper and lighter laptops plus a Mac Mini, because then I don't have to carry around a beefy MacBook Pro, but like these, what is it, MacBook Neo or something like that. It's like, they look pretty nice and super light, right? Maybe then I have my Mac Mini as my powerhouse, where I can still do photo, video editing and stuff, plus AI. But then I have my lighter MacBook for on the go, and I can still use cursor and cloud and all of that stuff on there.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Yeah.
more my decision to come.
Interesting. Gotcha. Yeah. I don't know, man. As like someone who's going to be in Brazil in a few weeks, I think that you getting a Mac Mini as like your workhorse. I would try to stay flexible. And to me, this MacBook Pro, I have the M4. It's a great computer. So
Yeah.
I still think for us, but yeah, I hear what you mean.
Well, I think that was it for today. So thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye bye.
Bye bye.
Ciao.